there every single time. Good morning, welcome back to Running Commentary, where I move along on a treadmill whilst providing some sort of commentary and usually video games, but right now, Magic Set Review. Let us pick up from where we got to. So, Friday we did all the rares and mythics from... all the new rares and mythics from the Commander sets related to Tarkir Dragonstorm, and today we hopefully will get through all the rares and mythics from the actual main set. And if that goes faster than expected, then I'll boot up Arena and we'll play something on there. Does that sound good? I hope so, because that's what you're getting either way. Let's get this treadmill going. Let's remember to actually... what's that? 15:30. I can try to... got that. Yes, that's what I want. Sorry, I just realised that I had not actually set property. The one. I've not set the treadmill app to actually show up. Turn that on. Yes, phone, please work. Okay, that's working. Confirm. Connect. Moving. Look, we have technology. Aha! Okay. Now that that is working, as expected. There. I have drink with me this time. Okay. Ugin, Eye of the Storms. 7 mana for a legendary planeswalker Ugin. It has 7 loyalty and a static effect of when you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors, and whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. For +2 loyalty, you gain 3 life and draw a card. For 0, you add 3 colorless mana. And for -11, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So, 7 mana exile removal spell is... that we've actually seen exactly that. Can I remember the name of it off the top of my head? That and exile? Let Gatherer work on that and see if it can find the card. No, I wanted no colors. Never mind. So, only hits colored permanents, so bad against artifacts and Eldrazi, but it great in an artifacts or Eldrazi deck. Important to note that devoid spells count as colorless, so if you're casting, say, what's a good devoid card? Sorry, brain is still. Chrysalis, that's the name of the... oh. Okay, let's try it. Writhing. Come on, let's get my brain working. There we go. So, if you cast Writhing Chrysalis, despite it looking like a red-green spell, it has devoid, it is colorless, you get to exile something off of Ugin. What else have we got? +2, gain 3 life and draw a card. There is an argument for just playing him as the top end in a super controlling deck where all you want to do is have this giant threat sitting around. Really, you want to be playing him in something very, or not necessarily very, but moderately artifact heavy, or an specifically Eldrazi title. What's it to say? He's a removal spell that makes all of your other artifacts into a removal spell. Yeah, my spelling is terrible right now. You try typing correctly whilst moving around and trying to have an entirely separate conversation. Not that easy, I tell you. Onwards. Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage. 2 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, Spirit Soldier. Both two very relevant creature types. She has Flash, she has First Strike, and she has whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Anafenza endures 2, which means put 2+1/+1 counters on Anafenza, or create a 2/2 white spirit creature token. So, for every non-creature you have that dies, Anafenza gets bigger or gives you an extra body. Extra bodies are excellent defensively, making her bigger is excellent offensively, especially when she has First Strike. Flash means that you can do all sorts of shenanigans for people that aren't paying attention, or if she's in your 99, then she's in your hand and people aren't expecting her. Powerful card for mid-range shenanigans, sacrifice shenanigans, just I want a big value creature. She worked very well for. Great for against board wipes, because someone casts a board wipe, you flash her in, all of your things die, and for every non-token creature you had die, you get to make a 2/2 spirit. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? Nothing about her is incredibly overpowered. She's just lots and lots of value bits all stuck together into a very solid package for a 3-mana card. Clarion Conqueror. 2 and a white for a 3/3 dragon. Oh, it's so tiny! What a little dragon. It has flying. It has activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated. That includes mana abilities. It also includes yours. So if you go turn 1 plain Soul Ring, turn 2 this, your Soul Ring doesn't work anymore. But on the other hand, if your opponent goes turn 1 Soul Ring, once you play this, their Soul Ring doesn't work anymore. This is only activated ability, so triggered and static effects still work just fine, but if you're looking for a very hateful piece to shut down a whole load of different combos and powerful interactions, or just that one player, we all know who I'm talking about, who only ever plays Planeswalkers, this is a pretty solid thing, and a 3-mana 3/3 flyer is an absolutely reasonable rate for a creature anyway. The only thing you need to consider is how many of your things is this going to impact. If you run a lot of artifacts for ramp, you probably don't run this. If you run a lot of mana dorks, maybe you want to consider carefully. If your win condition is, look, I have 8 Planeswalkers in my deck, one of them will win me the game, this isn't ideal for you. Basically anywhere else, this is a solid card. Elspeth. Elspeth Stormslayer. 3 white for a legendary Planeswalker Elspeth. She comes in with 5 loyalty, and static effect. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So, just straight up, 5 mana token doubler. +1, make a 1/1 white soldier creature token. 1, sure, that's how many you're making. For 0, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn. So, +1, start building an army. 0, make your army into a game-ending threat. She doesn't really have an ultimate, but -3, destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. So, destroy a big threat, build yourself an army, make your army lethal. And just all of that stapled to Anointed Procession. Huh? Yes. One N in anointed. Elspeth is back and she is terrifying. I played against someone with her at the pre-release. If she stays on the battlefield for any time at all, she's basically unbeatable. Coming in with 6 loyalty and 2 defenders is an enormous challenge to get through if you don't have flying. And then, if you can't kill her immediately, she can just make her defenders flying. Nothing on her looks like it's incredibly busted, but that 0 effect to pump and fly everything is terrifying once it goes off. Important to note, the flying is until your next turn. So if you don't attack with them, you just make a pile of giant flyers that just sit around scaring away anyone from attacking you. There's been a lot of hype about Ugin. I think Elspeth is by far the stronger Planeswalker for Commander. She is a must be killed immediately and very hard to do so. Sage of the Skies. 2 and a white for a 2/3 human monk. When you cast this spell, if you cast another spell this turn, copy this spell, flying and lifelink. So, 3 mana for a 2/3 flying lifelink is fine, not exciting, but not, at least if you're doing keyword soup stuff, at least you're getting something. But if you can get anything cast before it and then play this, getting 2 2/3 flying lifelinks for 3 mana is a much better rate, especially if you are able to do some sort of token multiplication population shenanigans. It's not an incredible body. You're not desperately excited to play this unless you are intending to set up for some very specific shenanigans out of getting the extra copy, but it's certainly a fun and interesting little thing to build around. I was quite interested when it first came out and spent quite a bit of time trying to work out if there was a way I could make it work well in any of my decks. It's just fun and interesting and weird, and it's not necessarily powerful, but it certainly isn't weak. Smile at Death. 3 white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. This is a very silly card in the right decks. It is obviously intended for being jammed into the original Alesha, who smiles at death. I didn't write down what time I started. I said I started at 15:30, I think. Put that in. I can fix that later. So, the original Alesha who smiles at death. When she attacks, you get creature's power 2 or less from your graveyard back. And here we see Smile at Death pulling out that same shenanigans, but also pumping them up, which you would expect for a 5 mana mythic enchantment compared to a 3 mana legendary creature. But the Smile at Death is just a big old nonsense if you are good at filling your graveyard with small things. So I mentioned this before, but for an earlier card, but why can I not remember the names of any cards? Or at least the spelling of any cards. Is that not what I wrote? Am I going mad? So, if you're playing Nethroy, you often have a pile of very small creatures because you want to get maximum value. If you just fill your graveyard with them, Smile at Death lets you just keep looping those. Important to note, it's just an upkeep trigger, so it's a bit difficult to set up any sort of real loops or combos, but you do get to just value your way with 2 extra creatures every turn, assuming your deck's set up to do it. I'm going mad. Oh, I was searching the text, not the card name. Okay, that makes sense. I solved the problem, everyone. I'm excited for Smile at Death for my +1/+1 counters deck. It is a very specific build around, but if you have built around it, it is very powerful. Onwards! On the subject of powerful if built around, 3 and a white for United Battlefront. It is a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanent cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, doesn't hit creatures, doesn't hit lands, doesn't hit instants, doesn't hit sorceries. So, and doesn't hit anything at mana value greater than 3. So you need to have your deck very specifically constructed to be reliably hitting 2 permanents off of this. But if you have managed to achieve that, 4 mana for 6 value of permanents is a great rate. This, I don't think, is going to see much play in Commander. This is much more of a standard, maybe Pioneer or Modern sort of nonsense, where people can do things like Solemnity Cap. So, Solemnity? Man, my Solemnity. So, for those who don't know the Solemnity Cap combo, we have Solemnity, 3 mana enchantment, players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifact, creatures, enchantments, or lands. And then we have 9 lives, which is another 3 mana enchantment, which says if a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage and put a counter on 9 lives. When there are 9 or more counters on 9 lives, exile it. When 9 lives leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So with Solemnity and 9 lives, whenever you would take damage, instead you try to put a counter on 9 lives. Solemnity says you can't put counters on, 9 lives never counts up. Bam, you are immortal. It is a semi-popular combo in Pioneer, I think. It's being kind of hated out for being just a bit too slow, but United Battlefront means it's probably back on the menu. Anyway, back to Commander, which is what I'm actually meant to be focusing on. 4 mana to try and hit 2 3 mana value or less non-creatures is just clunky at sorcery speed, probably not worth playing, unless you have incredibly specific deck building criteria. Onwards! Voice of Victory. 1 and a white for a 1/3 human bard. It has Mobilize 2. Whenever it attacks, make 2 extra 1/1s, tapped and attacking, and then sacrificing them at the next end step. And your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Hey, you know how miserable it is when you're trying to work out if you can attack or not, but are afraid your opponent has some sort of trick or removal spell? Voice of Victory says, forget about that. Unless they have Otawara or some other sort of channel effect, they can't touch you. Just another in a long line of creatures that says, on your turn, you are safe to do what you like. No more counter spells, no more removal. If you are in a very interaction-heavy playgroup where everyone is running instant speed ways to deal with stuff, Voice of Victory is your friend. It's why it is very popular in CEDH circles, and probably of less value the lower down the bracket system you go. Still, a 2-mana that can attack 1/3, that can attack for 3, and stops your opponent doing stuff is an interesting little toy. Onwards! Ambling Stormshell. Hail the Durdle Turtle! Ambling Stormshell is 3 blue for a 5/9 turtle with Ward 2. Whenever this creature attacks, put 3 stun counters on it and draw 3 cards. Whenever you cast a turtle spell, untap this creature. If you are feeling like playing defensively and just sometimes need a burst of extra card draw, hello Ambling Stormshell. If you are trying to make Turtle Kindred work, here is one of the most powerful turtles we've seen for quite a long time. Is that true? That might not be true. We've seen quite a lot of good turtles recently, actually. But this is a new, powerful friend to join Wizards' desperate attempt to make Turtle Kindred a viable playstyle. 9 toughness is basically unkillable in combat. 5 power is enough to make people avoid going for chump attacks against you. Ward 2 means people are going to leave it alone until you decide that you want to get your 3-card draw from it. I just think it's amusing, okay? It's not very powerful. It's incredibly slow if you can't interact with counters in some way. Although on that note, commentary wife, what do you think of putting stun counters on your own creature in Perry? You don't proliferate them, obviously, because that would be ridiculous, but you have a few ways to shenanigan with counters and get them off of it. Just a thought. Onwards! Dragonologist! 2 and a blue for a human wizard. It's a 1/3. When this creature enters, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant, sorcery, or dragon from among them, put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and untapped dragons you control have hexproof. So, 3 mana, look at the top 6, get an instant, sorcery, or dragon. That's a pretty decent range of card types, especially if you're in Spellslinger or Dragon Kindred. And then untapped dragons you control have hexproof, so that your Dragon Kindred is relatively safe until you're ready to start punching things. It's just 3 mana, draw a decent card from the top 6 of your library. If you're looking to get through your deck, this is very decent. Okay, moving back to my wife. Well, you want to put counters on the Ambling Stormshell because when it attacks, it gets the counters and draws 3 cards, and then you have an extra counter type. You're not putting them on all of your creatures, you're just having a creature that can put stun on itself in exchange for card draw, and then you have an extra counter type for Perry, and then if you shenanigan to get rid of the stun counters, then great, you can just keep drawing cards, and if you don't, then great, you just have an extra counter type sitting around for boosting all of your counter effects. Moving on, Meringue River Regent. 4 blue for a 6/7 dragon. It has flying, and when this creature enters, return up to 2 other target non-land permanents to their owner's hands, but it also has an instant speed omen attached to it. Coil and catch, 3 and a blue for an instant. Draw 3 cards, then discard a card, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So, 4 mana, instant speed, draw 3, discard 1, very reasonable, and this goes back into your library where hopefully you can get it again and keep doing it, or 6 mana for a 6/7 flying that bounces 2 other permanents. Both sides of this are very reasonable for the mana cost they're asking for. If you're doing just big blue and other colours and want a very powerful value engine, Meringue River Regent is your friend. Nothing it does is exceptional, but it's very flexible and very reasonable rates for all that it's offering. It doesn't really combo or synergize, it's just a big powerful value engine. And a 6/7 flyer is a very solid beat. Beat stick, beating creature, punch facer, I don't know. That sentence got away from me somewhere. Onwards! Naga Fleshcrafter. 3 and a blue for a 0/0 snake shapeshifter. You may have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. And it has Renew, which means you can pay a mana cost and exile it from your graveyard, in this case 2 and a blue, exile from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on target non-legendary creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. So, you have a 4 mana clone, very standard rate. Important to note, this is one of the clones that can copy anything on the battlefield, not just your stuff, which is a very nice thing to see. The copy only your own things is a pretty massive restriction, especially in Commander, when everyone is doing cool things. The Renew does only choose a creature you control, but makes everything you have into a copy of the best non-legendary creature you control. And that is very potentially bonkers. The best shenanigans I've seen someone talking about with this is Biovisionary, who says, at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So you just get the Fleshcrafter into your graveyard, get a number of creatures out, play Biovisionary, renew Fleshcrafter, all of your creatures become Biovisionary, go to your end step, win the game. Happy days. Stillness in Motion. 1 and a blue enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill 3 cards. Then, if your library has no cards in it, exile this enchantment and put the top 5 cards from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. This is not likely to be enormously relevant. Well, no, sorry. Let's just start this over. Stillness in Motion, 1 and a blue enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill 3 cards. Then, if your library has no cards in it, exile this enchantment and put 5 cards from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. The second half of this is unlikely to be relevant unless you are in an incredibly dedicated self-mill strategy, in which case what this does is say, set up the best 5 cards that you need to automatically win the game over the next couple of turns. But mostly what this is 2 mana, mill yourself for 3 cards every turn. If you like milling yourself, that's quite reasonable. It's not an incredible rate, but it's not a terrible one. And it just sits there and does what it does every single turn from the beginning of the game. If you like self-mill, you like this. If you don't like self-mill, then run away. I need to drink something first. Tygam, Master Opportunist. 1 and a blue for a 2/2 human monk with Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it, then exile the spell you cast with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend. People have talked at length about the nonsense things you can do with it. Yes, there are so many nonsense things you can do with it. Mono blue tokens, mono blue suspend, mono blue extra turns, mono blue or any sort of nonsense that you like. He just makes half of your spells double up. Heck, mono blue control, where you just, the first thing you do is you counter a spell, then in that same turn you cast some sort of instant speed card draw, and then you get the card draw set up in suspend to keep filling up your hand later, drawing you into more counter spells and more card draw, so that you can just keep doing that over and over and over on every player's turn. Tiger Master Opportunist is very well named. There are so many opportunities to do interesting things with him. He asks for very little, except that you run a reasonable number of cheap spells so that you can cast 2 spells each turn. Winter Night Stories. 2 and a blue, sorcery. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. And harmonize for 4 and a blue. You may cast from your graveyard for its harmonized cost. You may tap a creature you control to reduce that cost by X generic, where X is its power. So, 3 mana, draw 3, discard on 2 or discard a creature. It's not exciting, but fine. And then for 1 mana, tap a 4 mana creature, draw 3 cards, discard 2 unless you discard a creature, is kind of interesting. If you're looking to just get a whole heap of card advantage, this is an interesting and reasonable piece. If you do a lot of playing from your graveyard, then this is quite reasonable. But again, this is probably more of a 60 card format card than it is a commander card, unless you are desperate for dirtliness. Although draw 3, discard 2, or discard a creature is pretty good for reanimation strategies if you are playing blue in your reanimation. That is a thing worth noting. This seems, upon reflection, pretty good in something like Scarab God, where you keep making 4-power creatures anyway, so you easily pay the harmonize. You draw 3, then discard a creature, so you can reanimate it with the Scarab God. There are definitely homes for this in Commander, but it is not a every blue deck wants it. Avenger of the Fallen. 2 black for a 2/4 human warrior with Death Touch. Relevant creature types, good stats for its mana, Death Touch is a great ability, and it has Mobilize X, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard. So whenever this attacks, you make a 1/1 attacking red warrior creature token for every creature in your graveyard. Delta Mill, we're looking at you again. You fill your graveyard up, you attack with this, you make 10, 12, 20 1/1s. You have Impact Tremors along to ping everyone, or trying to think, any sort of Anthem effects or token doublers. There's a lot of different things you can do with this, as long as you're playing something where you're reliably getting a reasonable number of creatures in your graveyard. Death Touch means your opponents are going to struggle to block or kill it. If you're looking for a very go-wide aggressive strategy, like Aristocrats loves this. The more I think about this card, the more places I go, yeah, this is pretty reasonable there too. The biggest downside of it is you need to be able to fill your graveyard, and you need to be able to be aggressive. If it's just sitting defensively, a 2/4 Death Touch is a good defender, but it is not doing a huge amount for you in terms of ending the game, or making use of its biggest effect. But yeah, play this with Blood Artists, play this with Graveyard Fillers, play this with Sir Conrad. Go nuts. For a 3 mana card, this is scary. Onwards. Arcee Revenant. How times change. 1 black for a 3/3 vampire with flying, death touch and lifelink. That used to be a rate for a 2/3 flying death touch lifelink with no extra abilities. But on top of just being the most ridiculous attacker and or blocker, we have Renew. For 2 and a black, exile this from your graveyard, put a flying counter, a death touch counter, and a lifelink counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery. So, you play this 3-drop. It sits around and either just keeps attacking in because it's really hard to block and gains your pile of life, or sits there defensively and says, no one wants to touch me because their things will die. And then when eventually someone board wipes, you play some big thing, exile this from your graveyard, and make your big thing even more ridiculous. Again, this is a pure value and rate card, but there is a lot of value and rate in it. Rot Curse Rakshasa. 1 and a black for a 5/5 demon with trample. That sounds ridiculous, right? Don't worry. It comes with a downside. It has Decayed, so it cannot block, and when it attacks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat. Oh well, it's just a 2-mana 5/5 trample that I only get to use once, unless I can reanimate it. Not so! It also has Renew. For X black, you can exile this card from your graveyard, and put a Decayed counter on each of X target creatures, activate only as a sorcery. So either you have a 2-mana 5/5 and you just try and set up ways to keep reanimating it over and over and punching in, or you get one good attack with it and then put it in your graveyard, and then later you make it so that a whole host of your opponent's creatures can't block, and the next time they attack they get sacrificed. That all sounds pretty reasonable, right? For a 2-mana card? I think the main way you want to play this is just going to be for that renewability. It's a pseudo board wipe sitting in your graveyard. That's great. It's a bit of a slow and clunky board wipe. You need a mana for every creature you want to kill, and they still get to make 1 attack. And if they don't attack, then the creatures just continue to sit around accumulating value, but it does stop them blocking. It's an interesting card. I think it's going to take a lot of playing with to really understand how powerful it is and how effective Decayed counters are, but it is definitely worth considering for just grindy, mid-rangey sorts of decks. Also, a great fan of grindy mid-range is the Scavenger Regent. 3 and a black for a 4/4 dragon. It has flying and ward, discard a card. It also has Exude Toxin. X black for a sorcery speed omen. Each non-dragon creature gets -X until end of turn, then shuffle this into its owner's library. It is a -X board wipe that just shuffles itself back into your library every time you cast it, or it's just a 4/4 flyer that makes someone spend 2 cards to kill it. Just very happy to sit around for either side and just make life irritating for your opponent. Great in red, black, or Grixis Dragon's Shell, where Exude Toxin is a one-sided board wipe, but honestly, if you're playing black, you probably don't care that much about your creatures dying anyway. Or water. The Sibsig Ceremony. Black for a legendary enchantment. Creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. That's ridiculous. But whenever a creature you control enters, If you cast it, destroy that creature, then create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So, discounts all of your creatures, but then instantly kills them. Ways we can break this. Play indestructible creatures. It tries to kill it, it fails, you get your creature and a 2/2 zombie, and your indestructible creature costs 2 less. Play creatures with enter the battlefield effects or dies effects. It enters, stuff happens, it dies, you get a 2/2. Oh well, you still got your value. This card is very amusing to me. It is an immediate must-have for my Ratadravic deck, but it is probably worth considering in a lot of white-black and green-black graveyardy decks. You do need to plan around when you play this to make sure that you aren't completely locking yourself out, but if you can set up a board state where you have this and a couple of value engines out, you're just going to keep accumulating value from it. Onward. Sidisi, Regent of the Mire. 1 and a black for a legendary creature zombie snake warlock. She is a 1/3 with tap. Sacrifice a creature you control with mana value X other than Sidisi. Return target creature card with mana value X+1 from your graveyard to the battlefield, only as a sorcery. So, you cannot sacrifice her to her ability, but you can sacrifice any other creature you control, and then get back a creature from your graveyard with 1 greater mana value than what you sacrificed. So you just sacrifice this 1-drop, get a 2-drop back from my graveyard. Sacrifice that 2-drop, get a 3-drop back from my graveyard. Just loop your way up the chain. If you like graveyard shenanigans, then she is great for them. If you see your opponent play one, I would recommend getting rid of her as soon as possible because she is just a pure value engine. If you know Birthing Pod, you understand why you need to be afraid of this. Onward! Sinkhole Surveyor. 1 and a black for a 1/3 bird scout with flying. Secretly, I think this might be one of the most underrated commander cards in the set. Whenever this creature attacks, you lose 1 life and this creature endures 1, which means you either put a +1/+1 counter on it or create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. This is just Bitter Blossom, but you get to decide if you want a bigger creature or another token. Birds and scouts are not particularly relevant creature types, but a 2-mana 1/3 flying will be able to attack for quite a while if you get it down early, and it can just keep growing itself every time it attacks, if that's what's needed to make sure it can get through. And if you need chump blockers, it can just churn those out as well. This is slightly more work to get to pay off than a Bitter Blossom, but it is certainly, I think, a reasonable comparison. Even if all you do is just put the +1/+1 counters on this, you very quickly find yourself with a very big flyer that your opponents have to spend, almost certainly, are going to break even mana-wise getting rid of it, because you only spent 2 mana to get it down in the first place. And one of the great advantages of removal spells is that you usually want to be making a mana profit on them. But unless they have specifically Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, they're going to struggle to make mana neutral. Corey Steel Cutter. 1 and a red for an equipment. Equipped creature has +1/+1, trample, and haste. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it, and equips for 1 and a red. +1/+1, trample, and haste is a pretty reasonable equipment stat, but the flurry effect is fine, but not really enormously exciting in Commander unless you are able to reliably do it on each player's turn. I've seen a lot of hype about this. I think most of the hype is left for standard or other constructed formats. I don't know that Commander is really where this is going to shine. If you find a way to do shenanigans and break it, please do let me know, because I always love hearing about the nonsense people get up with cards that I've dismissed, but I'm just not seeing it. Dracogenesis! Woo! Everybody's favourite nonsense. 6 red, enchantment. You may cast dragon spells without paying their mana costs. People have said, why wouldn't you just pay 2 more for Omniscience? Omniscience, importantly, is only from your hand. Dracogenesis is 2 less, and lets you cast your dragons from anywhere. Got something that lets you look at the top of your library? Cast them from there. Oh no, your dragons are sitting in exile, but you can cast them that way? Like, you've put a dragon on an adventure? You can cast your adventure dragons. Dracogenesis. Cast your dragons wherever you can cast your dragons. Shockingly, if you're playing Dragon Kindred, this is something you want to consider. If you're playing Changeling or Typal or some other sort of nonsense, maybe you want this. Anywhere else, yeah, just go with Omniscience. 1/1. Magmatic Hellkite. 2 red for a 4/5 dragon with flying. When this creature enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Its controller searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield tapped with a stun counter on it, then shuffles. This is just a value card. That opponent that always seems to have Nykthos or 3-3 City, now they don't. That, I can't think of any other really good combo-y lands off the top of my head, but it's just a, I don't like you having that value, get rid of it, and then you are down a land for an extra turn cycle because of the stun counter. The 4/5 flyer is very reasonable. If you are looking for ways in red, well, that's not the case, but if you're playing red and you want to be able to blow up the lands that are annoying you, but don't want to just spend your turn on a Stone Rain, mana sorcery, destroy target land, pay 1 more, get a 4/5 body to go along with it. Sure, they get a basic land back out of it, but who cares? Sarkhan, Dragon Ascendant. 1 and a red for a 2/2 human druid. When Sarkhan enters, you may behold a dragon. If you do, create a treasure token. Whenever a dragon you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Sarkhan. Until end of turn, Sarkhan becomes a dragon in addition to his other types and gains flying. So, he enters, you reveal a dragon, you get a treasure, so you have just ramped towards your dragons, and then when your dragon enters, he gets bigger and becomes a dragon and flies. If you're playing lots of dragons, Sarkhan is a nice 2-drop to help you get to your bigger dragons and just grow into a giant beatstick himself. If you're not playing lots of dragons, then you really don't care. Which is exactly how Sarkhan feels about anything that isn't dragons. Stadium Headliner. 1 and a red for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior. It has mobilized for 1, so whenever it attacks with a friend, and you can pay 1 and a red, sacrifice this creature, deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature. So, you only really want this in a very go-wide tokeny or creatures deck, but it's a 1/1 that makes an extra friend when every time it attacks, which go wide is happy to do, and you can sacrifice him to kill something based on how wide your board has gone. A creature that makes friends and is a removal spell is very reasonable for a 1-drop. If you're going wide with tokens and have red, you want to consider it. If you're not doing that, then don't bother. Important to note, he will be sacrificed before he works out how much damage he's doing, so you cannot count the stadium headliner towards the number of creatures for your damage spell. Storm Scale Sky. The Storm Scale is back, and it says, yeah, Storm's probably okay, actually. We will see. Storm Scale Scion. 4 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying. Other dragons you control get +1/+1, and it has Storm. When you cast a spell, copy it, but each spell cast before it this turn, copies become tokens. So, you cast this and nothing else, it's just a 4/4 flyer that pumps all your dragons. That's okay for 6 mana, but not incredibly exciting. You cast something else and then this. Now you have 2 4/4 dragons that give all of your other dragons +2/+2, and each other +1/+1. One spell, +6 mana, for 2 5/5s and all your other dragons get +2/+2. That's already very interesting. If your Storm is anything higher than that, then it's absolutely bonkers. You definitely want to be playing it. You really want to be doing this on a turn when you already have quite a lot of dragons, because if you just play this and pass the turn, all of your opponents are going to be going, you are the threat, we need to kill you or all of your dragons. That's about it, really. It's very silly, it's very fun. Have fun. Please do let me know what's the biggest Storm count you get, and just how much maths you had to do to work out how much damage you had on the battlefield. Tursa Lightshatter. 2 and a red for a 3/3 Orc Wizard with haste. When Tursa Lightshatter enters, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Whenever Tursa Lightshatter attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, exile a card at random from your graveyard. You may play that card this turn. Important to note, you do still have to pay the costs for whatever you've exiled. So, 3 mana 3/3 haste, very reasonable. Discard 2 cards you don't want, discard up to 2 cards you don't want, draw that many cards. Nice hand filtering. And then, if you have 7 or more cards, you get an extra card at random every time she attacks. Is fine, but having to pay the mana for it means that you need to really consider your sequencing carefully. It does say play, so if you exile a land with her, you can play it, but that means you need to plan, do I play my land before combat, or do I wait to see what I hit with Tursa? I can see some interesting plans where you just fill your deck with pump spells and just go very aggressive in a sort of Voltron style, and just keep hitting instants and sorceries that you can, ideally instants, and then you attack with her, you get another instant from your graveyard, you cast that to pump her even more. I don't know, she's an interesting thing. I think that the having to pay the cost for the card you've exiled will reduce her viability quite a lot, just because people dislike remembering that they can do things in their second main phase. Onwards. Bloomvine Regent. 3 green for a 4/5 dragon. It has flying, and whenever this creature or another dragon you control enters, you gain 3 life. And it also has an omen for claim territory, 2 and a green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards. Reveal them, 1 into the battlefield tapped, and the other into your hand, then shuffle. So, 5 mana 4/5 flying, gain life whenever you dragon, fine. And forest only cultivate, fine. If you're doing mono green, claim territory is great. If you're doing dragons, Bloomvine Regent, great. You need to be reasonably forest dense for claim territory to be worth the effort, but it's a reasonable ramp spell attached to a reasonable body. If you're in mono green, this is probably just better than cultivate. If you're in green-red and have any number of dragons, this is a pretty decent conclusion. There's nothing incredibly exciting in here, it's just a solid piece on both sides once again. Onwards! Craterhoof Behemoth we've seen before. We all know that Craterhoof is just a game ender. It continues to end games the way it has since we first saw it. Onwards we go. Herd Heirloom. 1 and a green. Tap, it's an artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any colour, spend only to cast creature spells. Or tap, until end of turn, target creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, early game, it gives you mana to cast your big creatures, and then late game, it gives your big creatures trample and card draw, so that you can have things to cast. If you're doing stompy things, this is an excellent card. That's about the entirety of my opinions on it. You have to be reasonably creature heavy. Again, make sure you're sequencing correctly so that you tap this for your creatures and don't accidentally leave it up and then try to cast some sort of combat trick with it. And giving your big things trample and card draw is an excellent mid to late game effect to keep your deck going. Do not overlook this card. As far as 2 mana rocks go, this is one of the more powerful we've seen in a long time. Lashid Prowler. 2 green for a 5/5 Snake Ranger. When this creature enters, you may mill cards equal to the number of lands you control. And renew for 1 and a green. Exile this card from your graveyard, put X+1/+1 counters on target creature where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. So, 4 mana 5/5 that helps fill your graveyard, and then later on pays you off for having a full graveyard. If you're looking to self-mill, this has the potential to be a very big effect. Because the later the game you go, the bigger the mill effect you're getting from this. But that also means that the later you go in the game, the more you have to consider whether you can actually afford to mill as many lands, mill that many cards. Aggressive self-mill decks may find that by the time they've gotten around to wanting to cast this, their library isn't actually big enough to afford the mill cost. It's a very interesting card, surprisingly mathsy for what is a fairly minimal amount of rules text, and of course late game it's just a giant pump effect. Nature's Rhythm. X green for a sorcery. Search your library for a creature card, mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And then Harmonize for X, green. Cast this from your hand, cast this card from your graveyard for its Harmonized cost. You may tap a creature to reduce the amount of generic mana. Then exile this spell. So, X green, find the best thing in your library of mana value X. And then later, tap some big thing, pay 4 green, search up another big thing. Morning Mujahid, how am I? Not bad. Throat's getting a little bit upset with how much talking I'm doing, but we're making our way through all the rares and mythics for this. Thanks? I do need to remember that I actually need to replace these glasses. I've had them for way too long, but tell my wife you appreciate the glasses. She's the one that chose them for me originally. Onwards. Surak, Elusive Hunter. 2 and a green for a 4/3 legendary creature, Human Warrior. This spell can't be countered, it has trample, and whenever a creature you control or a creature spell you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card. So, 3 mana 4/3 trample, very good stats, can't be countered, is very nice against the sort of people who don't like a 4/3 trample. And whenever a creature you control or a creature spell you control becomes a target of a spell or ability, draw a card. That means if they try to remove your stuff, you draw a card. If they try to counter your stuff, you draw a card. Is solid beta, probably pretty decent as a commander if you want to just protect your stuff, pretty reasonable as a commander for Voltron because has inbuilt trample, is guaranteed to hit the battlefield and gives you cards when they try to deal with it. That's about all I've got to. It's just a solid 3-drop, card advantage, beta, happy times. Onwards! Warden of the Grove. This is one of the cards I've been most excited about from the set. For 2 and a green, it's a 2/2 Hydra. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever another non-token creature you control enters, that creature endures X, where X is the number of counters on this creature. So, you keep pumping this up with counters, and then every other creature you control brings with it either its own pile of counters, or an extra body based on how big the Warden of the Grove is. I've played this in Sealed a couple of times. It is bonkers when it gets going. I am very looking forward to playing with it in Commander, because I think it's going to be even more nuts there, where you can start doing real +1/+1 counter bananas nonsense. Hydras. They go big. This Hydra makes all of your friends big, or makes you even more friends. All for 3 mana. If you're doing +1/+1 counter shenanigans, this is an excellent inclusion. If you're just playing mono green stompy value stuff, this is still pretty reasonable. It makes your stompers bigger, or gives you more stompers. Onwards! Next 20. Ooh, we're nearly at the end. There's 45 more cards to go. All Out Assault. 2 red, white, black enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. That's a pretty unpleasant anthem effect. Good to know about. Be afraid of all of the random tokens that are going to be coming at you. When this enchantment enters, if it's your main phase, there is an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. When you next attack this turn, untap each creature you control. So, 5 mana, Anthem, everything is Death Touch, and you get an extra combat. That is a huge amount of value for an aggressive sort of deck. If you are playing Mardu, you are probably being aggressive anyway. Pizza. I don't know if I have any pizzas. If we do, then I probably need to eat them soon, because they'll be in the freezer that we're trying to empty. Thank you for distracting me. Back on track. All Out Assault. If your opponent plays this, the game, like, increasing the speed isn't going to happen. I need to be able to actually stay on top of breathing. If I go faster, then I am not going to finish what I am intending to get done this session. If you want to see me go faster, then come back on Wednesday when I will be upping the speed. But I cannot go faster and keep talking because I need to breathe. All Out Assault. If your opponent plays it, the game is probably over. I'm sorry to hear that. Awaken the Honored Dead. Black, green, blue. It is an enchantment saga. Chapter 1. Destroy target non-land permanent. Chapter 2. Mill 3 cards. And Chapter 3. You may discard a card. When you do, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So, 3 mana, destroy something. 2 mana, fill your graveyard a bit. 3 mana, ditch something in your hand to get back something you want from your graveyard. if you want me to listen to a song, feel free to post a link, and I will have a look, be glad to listen to it after the stream. But I'm very careful about what music I play on stream, because YouTube gets very excited about going, everything I stream ends up on YouTube, and YouTube is very excited about going, bad, you played music you're not allowed to. And I believe you, but YouTube sometimes doesn't care and will just... There's a whole load of random bots that just run around going, hey, that's my music, regardless of whose music it actually is. Barren Steppe Siege. 2 white-black enchantment. As this enchantment enters, choose Abzan or Mardu. Abzan. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Mardu. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. So, 4 mana, every turn, give all your creatures +1/+1, or 4 mana, every turn, make your opponent have to sacrifice things if your stuff also died. I think largely, if you see it, it's going to be on the Abzan mode, because +1/+1 on everything every turn is a lot of value, and I think too many board states have enough tokens that they just won't care about the Mardu mode. That said, if you are playing a deck that runs very few but big powerful creatures, you do need to be careful if the Mardu mode comes down, because they will eat through your board state very efficiently. Yeah, I've seen the name of the song. I said I'll listen to it after the stream. I'm perfectly happy to do that, but I don't want to interrupt what I'm currently doing to... Betor, Kin to All. 2 white, black, green for a 5/7 legendary creature spirit dragon with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if creatures you control have total toughness 10 or greater, draw a card. Then, if creatures you control have total toughness 20 or greater, untap each creature you control. Then, if creatures you control have total toughness 40 or greater, each opponent loses half their life rounded up. Honestly, that last one, people get overexcited about. I think it's probably not that relevant. It's the 10 and 20 toughness effects that are really going to grind you through the game. Having 10 toughness when Betor has 7 already is incredibly easy to achieve, and means you're just drawing an extra card every turn. Creatures you control have 20 toughness or greater, untap them all, means that you can attack very happily without having to worry about your defenses, because you just get to untap and sit back. If you get to 40 toughness, then congratulations, you're going to very slowly grind your opponents down, but unless you're specifically playing a Toughness Matters deck, then you're probably going to have enough power attached to that 40 toughness that you can be just hitting and closing the game out with that anyway. That said, is a great and interesting build around Commander, is great in the 99 of an Abzan mid-range, Abzan value, Abzan toughness deck. Huge amounts of grinding value built into it. Enjoy your dragon. Pull the Spirit Dragons. White, blue, black, red, green, enchantment. Dragons you control have indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, for each colour, put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon you control of that colour, and if you put a +1/+1 counter on 5 different dragons this way, you win the game. Very silly 5-colour meme. It's probably not worth the effort. So, to pull this off, you need to have 5 different dragons covering the 5 different colours, and make it round a turn cycle. And yes, your dragons are indestructible, but can still be exiled, still be bounced. And 5 mana to distribute a few +1/+1 counters is a terrible rate. If you manage to win the game with this, please do let me know. I would love to hear the story of how your opponents let it happen, but it is clunky. Death begets life. 5 black, green, blue for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures and enchantments. Draw a card for each permanent destroyed this way. 3 colors and 5 mana for this is probably overpriced unless you're in a very enchantment heavy meta. Like, if you're doing this, just like, why not just play In Garruk's Wake instead? That doesn't mess up your board and gets planeswalkers, which are usually more threatening than enchantments. Yes, you lose the card draw that way, but half the time you're not going to want to cast this because there are sorry, chat was just getting very weird. Anyway, half the time you're not going to want to cast this because there are going to be so many things on the battlefield that you're going to risk decking yourself if you draw that many cards. There is a very narrow window where this card is actually usable. Dragonback Assault. 3 green, blue, red for an enchantment. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. And landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. This card is absurd. Only 3 damage for 6 mana isn't great, but it's enough to clear out a lot of the small things that are going to be going wider than your dragons are. And then every land you get makes you a 4/4 dragon. And if you've ever seen a lands deck go off, you know that that isn't just 1 dragon a turn. This gets out of hand real fast with fetch lands and mana ramp and any sort of token doublers that the green provides you. If an opponent plays this, it's not necessarily you have to instantly deal with it, but you do need to keep an eye and make sure that they aren't about to say Splendid Reclamation and just make 10 dragons out of nowhere. Eshki Dragonclaw. Subject of a lot of debate in one of the discords I'm in. Eshki Dragonclaw is 1 green, blue, red for a 4/4 legendary creature human warrior with vigilance, trample, ward 1, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, draw a card and put 2 +1/+1 counters on Eshki. It has been concluded that the most entertaining way to build this is with a load of the Omen Dragons and with Adventures and with the double-sided, with a pile of modal double-face cards that are instants and creatures. I can't think of any off the top of my head because my brain is fried. But you just play a load of things that can be either a creature or a non-creature, and you just sequence everything to make sure Eshki just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Important to note that on the turn you cast Eshki, she will count herself. So if you can cast her and a non-creature on the same turn, you immediately get the card draw and 2 +1/+1 counters. She gets big real fast. Vigilance means that she works defensively. Trample means that she's an effective Voltron commander. Ward 1 isn't a lot of defense, but it's certainly not nothing. She is very much a build-around card. I think that it's going to be difficult to make her very effective in the 99, but as a commander, she has the potential to be very powerful. Onward! Fangkeeper's Familiar. 1 black, green, blue for a 3/3 snake with flash. When this creature enters, choose 1. Gain 3 life and surveil 3, or destroy target enchantment, or counter target creature spell. If you like options and you like being able to play controlling, this is an excellent choice. You can just sit there with your mana up, and if they place up a creature that you need to stop, Fangkeeper's Familiar. And if no one plays anything that you care about in the turn cycle, you still don't have to waste the mana. You can flash this in, blow up an enchantment, or gain 3, surveil 3. Surveil 3 is an enormous amount of value. You are definitely not sad if you choose that mode instead of counter a creature spell. 4 mana, 3 of which is coloured, is pretty restrictive. You need to check your mana base a bit to make sure that you can do it comfortably. And you probably want to have other things at instant speed you can do, just in case things don't work out. But yeah, this snake is great. Belothar, Dawn of the Abzan. White, black, green for a 3/3 legendary creature human warrior with trample. And whenever Belothar enters or attacks, you may sacrifice a non-land permanent. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Woo! Belothar is fun. I am very looking forward to putting him in my +1/+1 counters deck. I might even make him the commander of said +1/+1 counters deck. Enters or attacks gives you a lot of flexibility. Sacrificing a non-land permanent is a bit annoying, but hey, that's what tokens are for. And a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control for 3 mana is excellent, especially when you can do it repeatedly. One. Flamehold Grappler. Let me drink first, then we'll do Flamehold Grappler. Ooh. Sorry, just trying to mentally reset after that very peculiar conversation. Flamehold Grappler. Blue, red, white for a 3/3 human monk with first strike. When this creature enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn. When you cast it, you may choose new targets for the copy. So, this is looking for some really weird specific things. Either to be played very late game, when you can do this and a big flashy spell, or to be played with things with built-in mana reduction effects so that you can copy them. So imagine you play this and then you harmonize something, you get double the harmonize effect, and because it's harmonized you've reduced the cost. Or you play this and then some affinity spell so that you're only spending a couple of mana for what is actually a much bigger effect. Copying a spell is very, very powerful, but requiring 3 coloured mana to get this into play means that you need to do some very interesting deck building or sequencing to make it work. I'm going to try and speed up a little bit because I do want to get through all of this and I am starting to flag. So we may have less to say about everything from here on, but I will do what I can. Frostcliff Siege, 1 blue red for an enchantment. When it enters, choose Jeskai or Temur. If you choose Jeskai, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Or Temur, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste. The Temur side, both of these are very good, but looking for very different things. If you're in Jeskai and you have a pile of small flying things, you want, well, That's not right. If you want to choose the Jeskai mode, if you've got a pile of small flying things and you're reliably getting through for damage and you just need to keep your hand filled. And the Teamer side you want to choose if you're playing a lot of big stompy things and you really want to get value out of hasting and trampling. I can't remember if I put this on the list for Commentary Wife's Dragons deck, where both sides are pretty reasonable for her. I would probably recommend she generally goes for the Teamer, because dropping a dragon and having it immediately be able to haste in is pretty valuable for the way her deck plays out. But there are times when she would just want to stock up on cards. Interesting card, very flexible, lots of different homes for it. Neither side is really extraordinarily powerful, but they are both very reasonable for the mana value being asked. Glacierwood Siege. 1 green-blue enchantment. When it enters, choose Teamer or Sultai. If you choose Teamer, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target player mills 4, and Sultai, you may play lands from your graveyard. It is yet another Crucible of Worlds with sort of upside, well, definitely upside, but the upside is in the flexibility of this doesn't have to be another Crucible of Worlds, but for the Teamer to work you have to have at least a reasonable number of instants and sorceries, and either a specific plan for I am trying to mill my opponents out, or I want to fill up my graveyard. So the Sultai side is pretty flexible for anyone who's just looking to get to a long game and has fetch lands. The Teamer side requires a very specific game plan to do anything. Hollowmurk Siege. Black and a green, when this enchantment enters, choose Sultai or Abzan. If you choose Sultai, whenever a counter is put on a creature you control, draw a card only once each turn. Or Abzan, whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature, it gains menace until end of turn. Both of these effects are kind of weaker than the other sieges we've seen, but this is also only 2 mana. I think they are enough weaker that I would be hesitant about recommending playing this, even at 2 mana. Both sides are fine, but neither of them are particularly exciting. I don't know. I think I concluded that this is a pretty borderline card, and then just moved on. +1/+1 and menace on something you're attacking with is pretty useful. Drawing a card once a turn, if you can reliably put counters on things, is also fine. I don't know. Hollowmurk Siege, it's fine. Moving on. Inevitable Defeat. White, black, red, 1. Instant. This spell can't be countered. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 life, you gain 3 life. 4 mana, unstoppable removal. Probably overpriced, but at least it's got some life exchange stapled onto it. It can't be countered is kind of weird. If you really like expensive removal spells, then congratulations, here you go. Jeskai Revelation. 4 blue, red, white for an instant. Return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Jeskai Revelation deals 4 damage to any target. Create 2 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess. Draw 2 cards, gain 4 life. So, counterspell or bounce something, kill something, make 2 dudes, draw 2 cards, gain 4 life. If you like big, splashy top-end instants, then here we go. Here's another one to add to the growing list of big, splashy, multicolour top-end instant sorcery spells. Is this better or worse? It's just yet another Hinata card. I might try and squeeze it into my 5-color spell slinger, but I don't know that it's that good. Hinata makes it a lot better because it costs 2 less to cast through her. Because it has 2 targets only, yes. It's weird, interesting, it's kind of big and splashy. but also 4 damage is fine but not enormous. 2/1/1 monks with prowess is fine, but like, I think this is another one where if any of the numbers were bigger, I think I would like it a lot more. Potis the Fangkeeper. 1 black, green, blue for a 2/1 zombie warrior with indestructible. Whenever Cotis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. So, you want to make Cotis big, hit an opponent, exile the top chunk of their library, and cast it all for free. Great fun. If you can't make Cotis big, he doesn't really do anything. If you can make Cotis big, then you just play your opponent's decks at very high speed. Enjoy, he's hilarious. Onwards. Lotus Light Dancers. 2 black, green, blue for a 3/6 zombie bard with lifelink. When this creature enters, search your library for a black card, a green card, and a blue card. Put those cards into the graveyard, then shuffle. Thing to note number 1. The black card, the green card, and the blue card can be multicolored as long as they contain black, green, and blue. This is just a pure combo card. You play this, you get the 3 cards you need from your library into your graveyard, and then you do whatever the heck you want with them in your graveyard. If you're playing a Sultai graveyard deck, then this is a must-have, and if you aren't playing that, this is basically irrelevant. Onward! Mardu Siegebreaker. Fear the Chocobo Knights. 1 red, white, black for a 4/4 Death Touch Haste human warrior. When it enters, exile up to 1 other target creature you control until this leaves the battlefield. And when this attacks, for each opponent you make a tapped copy of the exiled card attacking that opponent at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice those tokens. So, this enters. You exile something good from your battlefield. You attack with this, you make a copy of the thing you exiled attacking each of your opponents. Great. Brilliant with ETB effects, brilliant with combat damage triggers. The 4/4 Death Touch is really hard to profitably block. Haste means that you immediately get value out of it. This card, I think, is brilliant and exciting. Narset, Jeskai Waymaster. Blue, red, white for a 3/4 human monk. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. So, if I've cast 3 spells, I discard my hand, I draw 3 cards. If I've cast no spells, then I may discard my hand, so I'd probably choose not to. If you are interested in a deck that just rips through your library incredibly fast, then Narset is the one for you. If you are not interested in that, she is very awkward. She does not really work with the traditional Commander game plan of just play giant splashy spells. She wants to play a lot of small things and just accumulate value out of just taking more game actions than anyone else. Nerev, Heart of the Storm. 1 red, white, black for a 4/5 legendary spirit dragon with flying. If a creature you control that entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice that much damage instead. So, double damage off your Flame Tongue Kavu. Flame Tongue. Oh. It enters, it deals damage when it enters. The Nerev doubles it. Important to note, it is doubling the damage, not doubling the triggers. All of your haste creatures now deal double damage when they hit something. I've seen a lot of people excited to build around just doing silly aggressive things, silly weird ETB blink things with Flame Tongues and Anathemancers. Nerev is big and scary and goes fast and hard, but is potentially quite vulnerable if it gets removed several times. New way forward. 2 blue, red, white for an instant. Next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented that way, New Way Forward deals that much damage to that source's controller and you draw that many cards. So, if one scary thing is attacking you, instead it fails, you smack its controller and draw a huge pile of cards. Great. Downside, if they're attacking you with lots of things, this cannot save you. Because you don't draw the cards until after the damage is dealt, and if you've taken lethal damage from everything else attacking you, you never get to see the cards that might have otherwise helped. 5 mana is probably too much. If you want 5 mana, then you should be running Ink Shield, although I'm aware that's different colours. If you want to just have something flexible to stop one giant attacker, then you should just stick to Deflecting Palm. Which does the first half of this. Yes, you lose out on a pile of card draw, but it is much easier to hold up a red and a white mana than it is to hold up 5. The only time that that's really useful is if you're in a very controlling deck where you're never tapping out. So it's reasonable to hold up the mana for this, or whatever other flash spell or counter spell or card draw you might otherwise use. Perenation. 3 white, black, green for a sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a hexproof and indestructible counter on it. If you have very specific things that you need to make sure stay on the battlefield and people keep destroying them, then this is the one for you. Any permanent comes back and cannot be dealt with. Marvelous. Cannot be dealt with, asterisk. Max Exile will still deal with it if it can affect that permanent type. So, if this looks like a sort of value grindy sort of card, I see it much more as a combo sort of card where it's just a way to make sure your essential combo piece does not get dealt with whilst you're setting up. I don't know. 6 mana for hexproof and indestructible, you need to be getting back something really game-changing. Rediscover the way. White, red, blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. 1 in your hand, rest on the bottom of your library. Do that twice because this is an enchantment saga. Chapters 1 and 2 is just card selection, and Chapter 3 is whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. Kind of clunky for Commander, like, unless you can, like, I don't know. You want to be in something where being able to give double strike to 1 or more things on a big splashy turn is relevant, and where card selection matters, and like, just 2 turns of card selection and then you're a double strike and you're a double strike and you're a double strike is probably fine. Needs some slightly interesting deck building where you have enough creatures that care about getting double strike and enough non-creatures that you can give them double strike. Welcome back, Commentary Wife. Thanks for dealing with 37 messages. Woo! Mate, chill. You are not endearing yourself here. Revival of the Ancestors. 1 white, black, green. It is another saga. Create 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens. Distribute 3+1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. And creatures you control gain trample and lifelink until end of turn. So, Chapter 1. Make 3 dudes. Chapter 2. Pump 3 dudes. Chapter 3. Attack for trample and lifelink with your dudes. It's an army in a can. If you like armies in a can, here you go, have another one. If you like bodies, some bodies and some counters, and a sort of very slow, overrunny thing, then this does it, I guess. It's very easy for your opponents to play around and see coming because it takes so long for the trample and lifelink to get there, but it's not a bad rate for the amount of value it gives you over 3 turns. Onwards. Roar of Endless Song. 2 green, blue, red for a saga. Chapter 1, make a 5/5 elephant. Chapter 2, make a 5/5 elephant. Chapter 3, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. All this wants is something that says all your creatures have trample, and then this is a game ender by itself. Well, not quite, but this makes a huge amount of power and toughness and just needs you to be able to dish out the evasion or the trample or the flying or literally anything so that all of that huge power and toughness ends the game. If you want a slow overrun, this is a much better one than the Abzan one. Onward! Severance Priest. 1 black green for a 3/3 Djinn Cleric with Death Touch. When it enters, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, exile that card. So get rid of the most irritating thing in an opponent's hand. When this creature leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner makes an XX white spirit creature token where X is the mana value of the exiled card. So you get rid of their best thing into exile forever, but when they get rid of this, they get back something with mana value equal to but they get back a creature sized based on how expensive the card you exiled was. A lot of the time, a random 7/7 vanilla isn't worth a huge amount in Commander, so just go ahead and take the best thing in your opponent's hand and worry not too much about the consequences. Really excellent if you can have it continuously enter the battlefield or set up some sort of infinite sacrifice reanimate loop and you can just get rid of every card in an opponent's hand forever. But even if not, it's a pretty good way to really irritate one particular player by just sniping the most important card in their hand. Chico, Paragon of the Way. 2 blue, red, white for a 4/5 legendary spirit dragon with flying and vigilance. When it enters, exile target non-land card, mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. Copy it, then you may cast the copy. So, 5 mana 4/5 flying vigilance is fine. When it enters, get any non-land mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. That's creatures, that's enchantments, that's instants, whatever you like. As long as it's mana value 3 or less, you get to cast it again. But the original goes to exile, so it's done. Probably some ways to set up some sort of nonsense blink loops with it, because there's quite a lot of blink effect at 3 mana, and it lets you just keep. So, you cast this, you cast a blink effect from your graveyard, this comes back, lets you cast another blink effect from your graveyard. If you've got some sort of enter the battlefield triggers to work off that, there may be some interesting shenanigans there, but otherwise it's just play this, get back something you cared about earlier. Onward. Nearly there, nearly there. Songcrafter Mage. Green, blue, red for a 3/2 human bard with flash. When this creature enters, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains Harmonize until end of turn. Harmonize cost is equal to its mana cost. So, 3 mana Snapcaster Mage that lets you tap a creature to discount what you're flashing back with it. If you like flashy value things, hi. If you like playing a giant spell and then playing it again later, hi. Requires you to have a reasonable number of instants and sorceries that you want to be able to do again, but if you do, oh boy does this let you do it. Teamer Battle Crier. Green, blue, red for a 4/3 Orc Ranger. During your turn, all spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control power 4 or greater. You play a pile of big things, and then all of your future big things cost less based on how many big things you have, which lets you play more big things, which lets you reduce the cost of your big things. All you need is some way to draw cards when you play them, and this lets you just rip through your deck. This card is very scary. I think this is one of the most kill-on-sight non-legends that you will see in the set. If your opponent plays this, you have to get rid of it fast before they just dump their hand. Teval, Arbiter of Virtue. 2 black, green, blue for a 6/6 legendary spirit dragon with flying and lifelink. Spells you cast have Delve, which means you can exile cards from your graveyard to pay for generic mana costs, and whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value. That last line is the big downside on this. If it was whenever you exile a card from your graveyard, lose a life, so that you were being punished for how much discounting you were doing with the Delve, I would be all about this card. But spells you cast have Delve says, I want to mill myself a lot and then cast big splashy spells for discount, and then this goes, cool, every big splashy spell you cast nugs you in the face real hard. It does have lifelink itself, it does help you recur some of the losses. I don't know. I just see myself trying to trying to build a deck. If I was doing this, I think I'd be doing some dumb stuff like trying to build around Exsanguinates and just fill my graveyard, cast an Exsanguinate where X is 1 less than my life total, go down to 1, drain everyone for a huge amount, and then try and do that again. That sounds like silliness, right? It's asking for several different things. It wants you to have a reasonable life total, it wants you to be able to fill your graveyard. It's a very complicated card to build around, but if you can make it work, it has the potential to be very powerful, because Delve is one of the most busted mechanics in Magic. Thunder of Unity. Red, white, black for a Saga. Chapter 1, draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. And then Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, whenever a creature you control enters this turn, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, you play this, you get a couple of cards to set your hand up. And then the next 2 turns, every creature that enters just nugs each opponent and restores your life total. This has the potential to do some very game-ending stuff if played mid to late game in Mardu tokens, where they just play it and then make some attacks, make a whole pile of random tokens, each creature does a whole pile of nonsense. Onwards. Ureni, the Song Unending. 5 green, blue, red for a 10/10 legendary spirit dragon. With flying, protection from white and from black, and when it enters, it deals X damage, divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control, where X is the number of lands you control. Its protection from white and black makes it very difficult to kill. 10/10 means that you're very rapidly ending the game when you attack with it, and its ETB means that you tidy up the board so that you aren't too afraid of being attacked back. This is a very silly commander, and also a very powerful dumb game ender in the 99 of your deck. Play Ureni, have fun. Don't be surprised if your opponents get real salty about you playing it, because protection from white and black can be a real hassle, when a lot of the best removal for big creatures is in white and black. Please note, protection does not protect you from board wipes, it only protects you from being targeted, so you can still get Wrath of Godded or not. Windcrag Siege. 1 red-white. As this enters, choose Mardu or Jeskai. If you choose Mardu, if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a opponent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Or Jeskai. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. Important to note, the Jeskai 1 does not require you to sacrifice it, so you can just sit there and keep making more and more 1/1 goblins. They do lose the lifelink and haste, but just making an endless army is quite useful. And the Mardu 1, if you've got enough attack triggers sitting around on the battlefield, the amount of value you can get from that is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to be putting it into my Never Stop Attacking deck. I will be choosing Mardu almost every time, and my opponents are going to get very frustrated as I go, hang on, let me just work out how many triggers I've got right now. Yathan Road Watcher. 1 white, black, green for a 3/3 human scout. When this creature enters, if you cast it, mill 4 cards. When you do, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, a 4 mana 3/3 that, when you cast it, reanimates another 3-drop. So that's a huge amount of value. Happy days. It's just a self-mill grindy value card. If you like doing that, then hello. Onward. Zergo. Thunder's Decree. Red, white, black for a 2/4 legendary orc warrior with mobilize 2. So when it attacks, you make 2 extra 1/1s tapped and attacking. During your end step, warrior tokens you control have this token can't be sacrificed. So, all of these at the end of your sacrifice them at the beginning of your next end step tokens suddenly do not go away. Very interesting to build around. I don't know how many warriors have Myriad, but we can... Let's go to Advanced Search and just see if we can do any very immediately, obviously silly things. Myriad, add, and type subtypes. Warrior. Add, search. Okay, so there are 2 warrior... Oh no, that's exile at end of combat anyway. Okay, ignore me entirely. This does not work at all with Myriad. That is not the direction you want to be looking in. Good to know. Anyway, Zergo. Make warriors, keep extra warriors. If you can find things that would otherwise be sacrificing warrior tokens and now can't, good job. I am too tired to really dig in and work out if there's any older cards that works well with. Dragonfire Blade. 1 mana, artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has hexproof from monocolored. Equips for 4 and costs 1 less to activate for each color of the creature it targets. If you like having your commander stay in play and your commander is at least 3 colors, this is an excellent card. If your commander is 2 colors, this is tolerable. I would not play this if your commander is only 1 color. Equip for 3 is just too expensive. +2/+2 and hexproof for monocolor, but equip to 1 mana to play it, very reasonable. If your commander is 4 or 5 colors, equipped for 3 is incredible, and you should probably just run this as a value piece to help keep your commander alive. One word. Mox Jasper. This is probably a trap. Mox Jasper, 0 mana legendary artifact, add 1 mana of any color only if you control a dragon. You have to already have a dragon. If this said only if you control a dragon or use to cast a dragon, this would be excellent. As it is, it doesn't do anything until you have a dragon, then probably doesn't do anything on the turn you have a dragon, because you then need to have a 1-drop. This then just enables a 1-drop. That seems... People are very excited about it. It's a MOX. It is exciting. It is a MOX. It's just a very, very restricted and clunky one. Onwards. Nearly at the end. Just got lands. Right. Corey Mountain Monastery. It's a land. It enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island, and it taps for red. And you can pay 4 and tap to exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Okay, until the end of your next turn is a really important part that makes this card playable, because you can just hold up your mana. In an opponent's end step, you activate this. This isn't only as a sorcery, thank goodness. Then you exile the top card of your library. Then you untap, you get to draw your card for the turn, and now you have this and the exiled card that you can choose to work with. It is fine. If you often find yourself stalling out and needing just any extra way to get card advantage, this will work. Important to note that just because it needs a plains or an island does not alter its color identity. You can play this in any deck that has red. It will just only be untapped if there's a plains or an island around. Dalcoven Encampment. Enters tapped unless you control a swamp or mountain, adds white. 3 and a white, tap. Whenever you attack this turn, make 2 1/1 red warrior creatures tokens that are tapped and attacking, and then sacrifice them at the end step. If you want ways to just have a little bit of extra aggression or a little bit of extra sacrifice for the aristocrats triggers, ETB triggers, whatever, this is a reasonable include if you find yourself running short on cards. Onwards. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. I can stop and breathe. Great Arishin City. It's a land, it taps for black, it enters tapped unless you have a forest or a plains. 1 and a black, tap. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. So, eats up your graveyard, makes 1/1 bodies. The bodies don't fly, but it just gives you some sort of mid to late game chump blockers while you try and draw out of whatever problem you're having. Kishla Village. Enters tapped unless you control an island or a swamp. Taps to add green. 3 and a green, taps Surveil 2. Helps you through your graveyard, helps you fix your draw step. I'd consider this one to be basically even with the red one, which means it's probably slightly better than the white and black ones. And then... oh, not the blue one. The Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. It's a land. It taps for colorless. Or, it taps to add 1 mana of any color, spend only to cast dragon spells or omen spells. And 4, tap, sacrifice this land, search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So, color fixing for dragons and omens, or mid to late game, sacrifice this to tutor up a dragon. Very reasonable if you're playing lots of dragons, very bad if you're not playing lots of dragons, unless you're in a super ramp deck with a combo dragon that you desperately want to dig to. Mistrise Village. The blue one of the cycle enters tapped unless you have a mountain or forest, and blue and tap, the next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. People are very excited about this for the higher end of Commander. If you play against people who regularly have counter spells, you want to get a hold of this. If you don't play against a lot of counter magic, you should probably just sell this on because it's currently going for a ridiculous amount of money. And there, we're done. That one doesn't count. That's an uncommon that just got a fancy mythic foiling. Woo! We made it. We're done. 5.63 020917. Right. See you Wednesday for more well-worn Wednesday Hades. I'm